Do lumberjacks get to talk about movies on the internet? Are my eyes lined up with the... I'm trying to make it so my eyes line up with the overhead light. Hi everyone, this is Spencer Howard Belden, and this is the Great Big Picture Show, my outlet to talk to you about the things I love and the things I don't in the movies I see. For my very first installment, which is this one. This is the very first one. I've never done this before. So I either expect you all to be merciless, really positive, or a little weird. Let's get a little weird. Before we get into any of all this stuff, all this chit-chat, all this long-winded me either making noises or saying and or going the way I would like to structure these videos, at the end I'll give you a recommendation, and I'm going to recommend under the structure of yes, no, or okay. Yes, no, or okay. And I'll give them a basis on solid or soft. Soft yes is like, yes. Yeah, it's a soft yes. It's good. Go see it. A soft okay is like, okay, I guess. And a solid no is, go eat some pancakes somewhere. Don't go to the movies today. For the first show, I'm going to talk about Steve Jobs, which opened nationwide this weekend, which is the harrowing American story about a small wooden puppet boy who yearns to turn into a real boy, and his dad has a strange name, Geppetto, I think. Let's get loose. Let's get loose. Okay. For my first installment, I'm going to talk about Steve Jobs, which opened this weekend everywhere, nationwide, directed by Danny Boyle. The movie's told in 3 acts, each one being one of the most important launches in Steve Jobs' career. And with that structure, we get to see Steve Jobs at his most dynamic, his most vulnerable, and his most emotional, and his most brutal. This was not a guy to be tested in the heat of the moment, very obviously. And with the strength of Aaron Sorkin's scripts, who he had written Social Network, Moneyball, we know with those kinds of scripts, dialogue is the key with these characters, and you get nothing short of that here. Just lightning fast dialogue, characters walking briskly, talking at each other, lots of great arguments. There's a great shouting match between Michael Fassbender and Jeff Daniels that erupts and just builds and builds and builds and builds. I imagine the satisfaction I get when I'm watching those kind of exchanges that are so well written, so well choreographed. I get to watch them and I'm like, wow. I can't help but think after these kinds of experiences that the people who go and see Resident Evil movie or Transformers sequels or what have you, I just imagine the same satisfaction they get from giant semi-trucks crashing into each other and blowing up. I get that same satisfaction from somebody really saying exactly what needs to be said to the exact person who needs to hear it. Don't get me wrong, I like a good explosion. I've seen Mad Max 6 times now, and I feel like my head is still on fire. Now, none of that would work unless you had a cast that could really hold it up, and obviously if you look at the cast for this movie, you get nothing less than star-studded. Michael Fassbender, who has just time and again been proving how effective he is in big blockbusters like the X-Men movies, but also in extremely dramatic movies such as 12 Years a Slave or Hunger or come on, what's it called? What's it called? This doesn't look like a turtleneck at all. Shame. That's what that movie's called. Anyways, he's extremely effective here, extremely precise, extremely powerful, and extremely swift, moving in and out of the scenery, just delivering his lines with really, really great intelligence and great power. And he's just like a little needlepoint, just jabbing right at it. We also have Kate Winslet, who's a superstar as far as dramatic, really heavy dialogue kind of movies. At Steve Jobs' right hand the entire movie, basically playing his conscience, trying to help him. I would argue the most surprising thing for people seeing the advertising for this or seeing posters would be the inclusion of Seth Rogen as Steve Wozniak, purely because this just isn't his type of movie. Not that he can't do it, obviously. He was extremely effective and extremely delicate when needed to be, and erupted when he needed to be. Very, very good as that character. And I recently read an interview where he had mentioned he hoped that people would see this movie and see him in the character, and that they wouldn't get scared off by including him in one of their next movies, whatever kind of movie it would be. And I agree. I hope that he gets more opportunities like this to kind of stretch out. I've said extremely like 1,000 times. The direction by Danny Boyle, very, very good, of course. 127 Hours and Slumdog Millionaire. He directed both of those movies, directed this, and I really like the focus that he had on this movie, whereas those movies were a bit more blown out direction-wise. This movie is very focused and it's very tight, but he still allows himself a few opportunities to use his creativity as far as acknowledging information and relaying the story in interesting ways. Very effective. Nice job, Danny. Which brings us to the crux of the whole story, which is with all of these launches, in between each one, we have an underlying story about his estranged wife and estranged daughter and their relationship, and it really humanizes the whole thing. And in the same way that The Social Network isn't really a Facebook movie and Moneyball isn't really a baseball movie, this movie really is trying to humanize this guy, and it's less a biopic about Steve Jobs and more a character study of a guy who's achieved as much as he had at each moment in his life and still couldn't quite figure out to connect to the people around him. All in all, really just electrifying, fast, heartfelt movie about what we miss when we're looking the other way, or what we forget when we're just running. Extremely focused direction, wonderfully written script by Aaron Sorkin. I don't care if people think he's a pompous guy or whatever. He writes dialogue like a machine gun. And cast firing on all cylinders across the board. I'm gonna say a solid yes. Solid yes. First one out of the gate, solid yes. I'm not going soft, I'm going solid. And that's it. It's the end of the very first great big picture show. How do you feel? You feel sweaty? I have felt kind of sweaty. I have a bit of a cough going here and there. But all in all, it was a good time. I hope you guys come back around. I hope you guys had a good time watching. I will do many more because I really like watching movies and talking to you about it. So, please go and check out Steve Jobs if you want. If you're applauding me because I accomplished the first one, I really appreciate it. If you turned it off a long time ago, then this doesn't mean anything to you. But either way, hope you have a good day. Hope you have a good night. and go hug someone. Yeah, I put these up here to generate some credibility. So you guys watching, you guys would watch me and think, hey, either he's around a lot of movies or he's seen at least some of those. So you must know what he's talking about, kind of. I think it's pretty good. I think that's pretty good, pretty good. I'm sure a lot of people would think, nah, he's pulling the rug out from under me. And maybe, maybe, just maybe. But not every person who talks about movies on the internet, I would imagine, has here we go, a troll guarding them. So, whether that gets me more credibility or less, you'll have to tell me.